Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Private Investigator Advice podcast. This is going to be episode 81. And this episode is going to be about, are you too old to become a private investigator? But before we get into that, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Private Investigator Advice. Private Investigator Advice has a starter bundle for private investigator businesses. It's got the private investigator retainer agreement. It's got a surveillance template with an example report and a video to walk you through to kind of let you know how to use the template, and an invoice, or excuse me, a intake template as well. So make sure you get all the proper information from your clients. Anyways, if you're interested in that, you can go down below on this video, and in the description there's going to be a link to that. You can also go to piadvice.net, and there is banners on the right hand side to get you to the right place. Anyway, so let's get into the podcast. So are you too old to become a private investigator? So this is one of those things that I get, like these indirect questions, right? It'll be like, hey, do you have any advice for a 53-year-old, retired, whatever, or something to that effect. No one ever, typically never asked directly like, hey, Andrew, do you think I'm just too old to be getting into this industry now? It wasn't until like a few weeks ago when I wrote this article where someone basically just asked me straight up, like, hey, I'm going to be starting my own business, but I wanted to get some experience first, and I want to get hired with the company. Basically, let me see what he said here exactly. So since I will be new to investigations, as far as future employers go, is my age a concern? Just a misguided fear? Is this just a misguided fear or something I need to take under consideration before I walk down this path? And so I had already started an article, and I didn't realize I hadn't finished it yet. And so I went and finished it, I think, within the day or two. And I think it's a question that people have. It's not a question that everybody has, but, something I wanted to address just to kind of eliminate that issue for some people one way or the other. So I did get anxiety about this topic because I have certain feelings about it, but I don't want to express those. I want to kind of examine this topic a little bit before I kind of get into my own personal thoughts. But one of the problems that our older generation has is, as we get older, and I'm 40 years old now, and please, if you're if you don't feel this way, that's great. I think that's awesome. But some people, we get a lack of stamina as we get older. Like, we get a little bit tired more. Maybe we take more naps. We slow down. Longer days can just kind of take a toll on our well-being. And depending on the type of assignment a private investigator might have, there might be some very long days. And if long days aren't something somebody can deal with, if you have a hard time working like 8 to 12-hour days, and not every day, but on occasion, then maybe you might be too old to be a private investigator. And I won't even say that it's too old. Like, there's just some people in general that can't. So, at least for some assignments might require you to do that. So I would say that might be an issue for some people. Another issue, in regards to age, if you can't sit for long periods of time, and again, this might not even be an age thing, but this is just generally speaking, we find ourselves sitting a lot. I mean, a lot. And I'd love to blame my gaining weight over the years on this occupation, which I probably could a little bit. A lot of it has to do with my eating habits that I kind of developed being a surveillance investigator and sitting in my car for long periods of time. But one of the things you have to do if you're in this industry and you're in this specific niches, if you're doing surveillance, you're going to have to sit for long periods of time without getting out of your car. And that can be brutal. So if that's an issue for you, either the occupation or maybe just that type of work might not be good for you. A lot of times you have to interview people, and that can require sitting down for a couple hours at a time to do these interviews and kind of be engaged. If that's a problem for you, then either the occupation or maybe that type of work in general might not be right for you. We're on the computers a lot. On the computers, we're writing reports, and that could be, depending on how much information you're writing, that could be a couple hours. And of course, you can take breaks and stuff, but there's a lot of sitting, just a lot of sitting in general. Just kind of, it can be a very active profession. You can be walking around doing a lot of things like that, but there's a lot of sitting as well. So, if any of those are concerns for you, whether your age might not be a factor regarding that, but if that's an issue for you, then maybe this might not be a good fit for you. But I'll be honest with you, I think all those things could be overcome. The things that I just discussed, stamina, and sitting. There's all kind of workarounds for these specific things. One of the main challenges that I originally thought when I was writing this is kind of like two things. It's trainability and knowledge of technology. And so I'll just kind of tell a little story here. I think I was born at the right time in regards to technology, where we are in technology. So when AOL, the internet and AOL started coming out, and I felt like that was a good time for me. I think I was as a teenager, my brother, who I think was actually at a better age in regards to kind of coming into technology. He was 4 years younger. Excuse me. When it all came about, I didn't know honestly what to make of it. I mean, when AOL and America Online, if you're not familiar with that, if you're too young to remember that was basically a way for us to get on the internet, and one of the main functions of that was chat rooms. That was a huge thing. Not as much now, but it was a huge thing early on in the life of the internet. Anyways, I didn't. I'll be honest with you. At first, I thought the internet itself was kind of a waste of time. It hadn't developed into to the resource it is today. But early on, I just looked at it and I'm like, gosh, man, I don't have time for the stuff I'm doing now. Like, how am I gonna have time to participate in that? And that was kind of my thought on it. And so, anyways, time went on, and I eventually, learned a little bit more about technology. And I was in the Army, and I got my first computer in the Army. It was a Gate. I don't know. The box was a cow covered. I can't remember what it was. Gateway, I think it was. Anyways, got my first computer. Kind of talked to some people that were a little more familiar with computers than I was. And I still didn't know everything. I couldn't wrap my head around everything. I could go into chat rooms. I could search the internet. I was still learning about websites, like very, very early on, but nothing to where I'm at now in regards to my knowledge. And not that I know everything, but I'm just way more educated, I guess. So, but what I did notice, and I know this is a lot from just like watching my parents, and that was like somebody I was around a lot more. It was these older generation of late adopters when it came to technology. And my parents, they really didn't have, and this is a lot of people's parents at the time, just didn't have a need for this type of thing. My dad, he worked in the business that he worked for, the place that he works. It didn't have, at that time, it wasn't, okay, the internet, great, but his job didn't require him to be particularly educated in that. And so maybe he did email. Maybe he could search the web a little bit, but he just didn't. He couldn't wrap his head all around it because he just didn't really dive into it right away. And my mom the same way. She was a teacher's aide, and at the time, it just didn't require her to really kind of dig in and learn about the internet and its capabilities and technology in general, right? When new things came out, because we've come quite a long way since the internet really just took off. And so now we fast forward. I mean, I don't know how many years it's been now. Let's just say 25 years. And I look at my parents now, and they're further along. They're a lot further along than they were, but they still. I mean, my dad, he still won't even. He hates like a smartphone. Like he would much rather have a flip phone. the capability of a smartphone annoys him. Too many things going on. I don't need that. I just need a phone, flip it open, I call. But yeah, so uh, and so with that being said, I think that technology can be a little intimidating, and if you haven't kind of learned things over the years of the past 20 something years with technology and the internet age, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for the older generation when this whole thing started, and so. And I think it's a steep learning curve for some people, and so anyway, so I found this guy Robert Chen of this website Embrace Possibility, and he believes that older individuals make a conscious choice to stop learning. He states that after college, people settle into their occupation, they have a certain level of expertise, and they no longer need to learn new things to survive. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Some people make a conscious choice to stop. When he says some people make a conscious choice to stop learning over time, he insinuates that it's more difficult to learn when you're not actively practicing learning. So, anyways, what else did he say here? Yeah, I guess that was it. He says, unfortunately, many people choose to stop learning, and it could be because they're just tired of learning and just want to relax. Or perhaps they want to feel that they've graduated and learned all that they need to know. Some even use the excuse that they can't learn anymore because they're just too old. Once they make this choice, a habit forms, and that person's ability to learn, like any unused muscle, weakens. I believe there's a lot of choice in that, or a lot of truth in that too. And some of the stuff that he's saying, I did a little more digging. The stuff that he's saying is supported by a study, which I'll link to in this video for you guys. I'll also link to the article so you can kind of take a deeper dive into it. My article, he says, let's see there, the study of journal in the Journal of Computers and Human Behavior, where about 900 participants aged 19 to 99 participated in a study related to the use of a tablet. And one of the things that this study revealed essentially is that the older participants were less likely to adopt this piece of technology. And the reasons range from doubting in its benefits to the lack of comfort just using it, right? The study also indicated that 6% of the sample reporting the people in this did not understand what a tablet was, even after they were provided with a full-page explanation of what this and photos what this tablet did. So I would say that regardless of your age, if you're trainable and you're willing to learn things, and you just kind of put your mind to it, this portion of my concern or concerns for others, this whole being trainable and technology shouldn't be an issue for you if you're willing to put the time in to kind of wrap your head around it and put the work in. I think you'll be fine. Regardless of what age you are. I think you'll be fine. So one of his other concerns is are employers going to pass on you because of your age? And I mean, there's a lot of senior. I don't want to use the word senior. What's the word? Veteran investigators. I don't like that word. But people that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and maybe they started their career in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and they just they've been able to adapt to technology over time. Like they just kept up with it. And of course they're a wealth of knowledge because they have so much from the old school before kind of technology took off, the old ways of doing things, older ways of getting information before the internet dependency. But they're not starting from scratch, right? Like they have this knowledge they built on, and they've hopefully adopted the technology and as it's come about. So, but not everybody starts their career as a private investigator at that age, and and have 30 or 40 years to work with. So I can tell you, for me, in the past, I've had the opportunity to trained people of all ages. And two in particular that came out to my mind when I was writing this was one, and I think he was in his 50s when I trained him. He was a former police officer. I think he'd been a police officer for like 5 or 7 years, but he hadn't been one for a long time. He owned his own business, and this was a long time ago. But anyways, he owned his own business with his wife, but he was just looking to make some extra money, and he thought the insurance investigation industry would be a good fit for him. So I'd interviewed him, and I thought he was a great fit. I trained him, taught him everything I could, and he picked up on it fine. And we were using technology and specific websites for the company to upload our video and our reports and things like that. And he had no problem with it. He eventually left. There were some transitions, and he left the company, and not because he was booted out or anything. He just found a better opportunity. Got hired with another company, and I haven't talked to him in a while, like several years now. But last I had saw, he was doing fine. He was doing fine. He was doing great in the industry. So another individual that I was able to get hired on, and with the company that I was working for at the time, and train was he was a lawyer. I don't know that he was actively practicing, but he was still licensed in Washington and Oregon at the time, I believe. And he was looking. I can't remember the reason why he got into the industry, but I do remember training him. I remember he was very successful. He was like really good at pretexting. He had a knack for it. He lived in the country, and he just had a way of talking to people, and maybe it was his being a lawyer for so many years. I think he was actually a sitting judge at one point, and he was a fascinating guy and highly intelligent. When it came to stuff about laws, I would pick his brain because he was just a wealth of knowledge. But he had no problem adapting to the technology, and he, I believe, was in his 60s at the time. I can't remember for sure, but I'm almost certain. But nicest guy. And again, he ended up leaving the company that we were with. And I think he started his own business and was doing subcontracting last time I talked to him. Again, really nice guy. And so these are my encounters that I had. I think I don't think age is an issue. It's only going to be an issue if you can't adapt. That's really what it comes down to. Okay, before we get into the next section here, I just want to let you know that Audible is giving away a free audiobook. It's a 30-day free trial. And basically, you sign up, you get the free book. If you don't want it, if you don't want to continue with the service, you can cancel and at no obligation. And the way to get this is to go to audibletrial.com/PIA. That'll let Audible know that I sent you. I am an affiliate for Audible, and I will receive a small commission at no extra cost to you if you decide to sign up through my link. So I want to thank you in advance for checking it out. If you decide to, I'm a big Audible fan. I'm just a big Amazon fan in general. Again, audibletrial.com/PIA. So the next section is like, what's the fear? If you're someone who's starting a second career, who's older, I can personally say that I've never ever saw an investigation company pass on a applicant because of their age. Never. I mean, I just haven't. And maybe because it just doesn't play a factor as much in the investigation world. In fact, when I was writing this, my wife brought it to my attention that not only haven't seen it, but it's not illegal to pass on someone based on their age. And according to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, the Age Discrimination in Employment, the ADEA, forbids age discrimination against people who are 40 or older. It does not protect against workers who are under the age of 40, although some states have laws that protect younger workers from age discrimination. It is not illegal for an employer or other covered entity to favor an older worker over a younger one. even if both workers are age 40 or older. So I thought that was interesting. So if that's something you're worried about, you're actually protected by the law, and so nothing nothing really to sweat when it comes to that. Again, I think it just comes back to being someone who's trainable, willing to work hard, be flexible. If you have all those traits, I think you're in good shape. So I would also say that when people who come with like a work history, people who've been in the industry or just been in the work industry for a long period of time, they have a certain amount of knowledge that comes along with that, and assets, right? And I'll kind of give you just a small example from my life. I was in the work field. And then in my 30s, I decided to go, I think it was my 30s, late 20s maybe, go get my associate's degree. Pretty sure it was my early 30s. So I go to get my associate's degree, and these beginning classes that you take when you're getting your associates, they were all the stuff that I already knew. And while that's kind of cool when you're in high school, it's not that cool when you're in college. You're paying for classes where the knowledge you're getting is like, okay, well, I know that. Well, you might say, well, it's an easy A, Andrew. Yeah, but it's also a waste of money. And basically, I already knew it all. And I think that has a lot to do in the employment industry, or not employment industry, that's a workforce industry where you come to different jobs, and if especially if you're coming from like a second career, you come with a lot of experience and maturity, and so I would just kind of look at when you're applying for investigation companies, I would just kind of look at, okay, so what have you learned with your various responsibilities over the years in companies, and what do you think you have to offer? Aside from just learning the job itself, like maybe it's mentoring, maybe you're a good communicator. You just have to kind of look at your assets and kind of see how you can make whatever company you're applying for better. So here's my final thoughts on whether you're too old to become a private investigator. I think you guys know where I'm coming from. I personally really don't think anybody's too old. I think, like I said, we kind of talked about, there's a level of maturity that comes along with age. Really, it just comes down to being teachable, willing to, put in the hours, work hard, just like anybody else. And I just don't think that's, as far as I know, it's, to my knowledge, it's really not an issue in the industry. And so with that being said, I would just keep saying, no matter what age you are, young or old, just be a student. Just continue to learn about different things. Stay up to date if you can regarding technology or what's going on in the world. Just kind of keep up to date. You don't have to be a master at everything, but just be knowledgeable. And I kind of close with this this final a quote from Albert Einstein. I think it applies to me. It applies to a lot of people. And it says, the quote is, "The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know." And that's true for me. I've been in the industry a long time, and there's still so much about this industry I don't know. But whenever I do learn something, I'm going to share it with you guys. So anyways, that's the podcast for today. I thank you guys for taking the time to listen. I really enjoyed, as much as I didn't like talking about this, I do like talking about it, being able to share my experiences with you on this and my thoughts. So with that being said, good luck to you out there, no matter what age you are getting into this industry, and I'll see you guys on the next podcast. Thanks.